Welcome to Amplify, the podcast for accounting marketers. I am your host, Mike Jones, CEO and Managing Partner of Resound, a brand consultancy for B2B professional services. And today I am super excited to dive into the topic of recruitment for accounting firms and also how to scale your firm in a highly competitive market. And today we're talking to Rachel Anevski, CEO and founder of Matters of Management. I'm super excited to have Rachel on today. Rachel has a very interesting and applicable background. She's a 20-year veteran working with public accounting firms and their clients to create a better workforce for succession planning. That's what she does. And prior to founding her own consultancy, she held roles as a director of marketing and business development, as well as director of human capital at two well-known East Coast accounting firms. So when we talk about the intersection of accounting and HR, she's like right there. And has been in those roles and is now working with a lot of clients on that. In the past 10 years, she has serviced more than 100 accounting firms in hiring and developing programs to enhance their recruitment and retention. I think she's, again, well qualified to talk about what we're talking about today. So Rachel, thank you so much for coming on. Maybe give me a little bit more of detail about your background and how you got into what you're doing today.
Sure, I'd love to. And thank you so much for having me today. This certainly is a talk I feel rather confident talking about. I fell into accounting by mistake. Actually, I took
It's not uncommon.
I have a criminal psych background. It's been great fun working with a forensic accounting degree, working with accountants that like to drink. They're my favorites. I just kind of ended up, I applied for this ad as a scheduling coordinator, which if you know, right, that's like the heartbeat of the firms, right? So I got to learn really rather quickly how to match people's skill sets with the jobs we sold and to, how to figure out the efficiencies of all of them. And I loved it right away. But I guess the firm that I worked for saw some other things in me. And so I became the director of HR really rather quickly and took on this, the greater roles of things, got a couple certifications in HR, got my master's in organizational behavior, and wanted even more. Unfortunately, it was a time where the first downturn of the economy hit, and I was asked to lay off the marketing director. And I was okay doing that. I understood why to do that. I didn't think that they would ask me then to become their director of marketing rather quickly thereafter. And
let's downsize. And by the way, you're now taking it on.
Right, like you're it, and no increase, by the way. So I was up for the challenge for sure. The way that it was positioned to me was there was no one that knows us better than you. Right. And so in professional services, we don't sell just tax returns, audits, and whatever. We sell the people that are going to do the work. And that was right up my alley. That to me started my mind thinking about human capital, marketing, and business development, and how it's a marriage, right? This kind of triangle of working together in professional services. And really that's kind of where my mindset started growing in terms of, well, why aren't there more conversations between the marketing departments and the HR departments, and how can we kind of bridge this gap? And it became rather talked about within my peers of, how frequently you're talking to people. And then when the business kind of came back and we did go out and hire some other people, then it was really important for me to make sure that these two departments really communicated. And I can give you a laundry list of how best they work together. And what was interesting is because when I left that first firm, and I left because I wanted to open my own business, and I needed to acquire a couple of more skills. So Matters of Management, we assist in merger and acquisition, which obviously also has the components of marketing and HR, and we assist in the development of people and executive coaching and all of these things. But I wanted to see how that worked on a larger scale, and so I went to a larger firm, as the director of marketing, and realized that they were not talking to the HR department. Where in my first firm, it was HR then talking to marketing, and this one was marketing talking to HR. And we kind of, I was able to bring those two together on a just on a networking piece, on helping individuals and CPAs feel confident about themselves, on acquiring not only new clients, but the way in which we acquired new employees. So these are all of the things that kind of worked. And then it's been part of a service line at Matters of Management for the last decade or so. I can't believe I've been doing this for about 20 years.
Time flies when you're doing what you're supposed to be doing.
And you love what you do.
Yeah,
so
that's great. You are on like the front lines with your clients right now in this crazy topsy-turvy world. What are you seeing with accounting firms as they approach the shortage in talent today? Like what's kind of the observations you've been having?
Listen, I wish that I could have a magic wand and say it's all going to go away, but it's just not. I mean, I've told business owners like I cannot solve your problems, right? Like I am not. There's no one creating more people.
Yeah.
Like we're not. You
can't solve the talent shortage issue.
Right.
Not directly.
Like, that's just. Right. That's just that. This is a global problem that we all kind of need to have a mind on it. But there are some ways that we could be more proactive in our approach, or we could do things better, those best practices. Right. And so it's funny for me because and by the way, so Matters of Management, while we do recruitment and we do it really rather well, that came as a way of networking naturally with people in the industry. I think a lot of people say that they're doing recruiting in public accounting. It's a different talk for me. It is always a talk about why you should stay in public accounting. It's always a talk about why the industry is evolving and what people could do to stay engaged in it. So my talk with everyone I meet in the industry has always been one of, I don't want to say it's a sales pitch, but it is a proactive approach to like, hey, if you don't remember why you joined this industry, why you're here, let me remind you of what I see. And I don't do what you do, but I love the people that are in it, So it's just about communication, and it is a lot of sales. Yeah. It really is a lot of sales.
Yeah. And maybe not just selling them on your firm, but selling them on like, you should stay in this industry, right? This is a great place to be, whether it's at our firm or another one.
Yeah.
And really just saying, we love what we do and we love the clients that we have. Hopefully that's true.
Yeah. Well, I do think it's true, because I think if you talk to many partner level accountants, the talk really is that they got into the industry for the right reason and that they do love what they do. The parts they don't love are the retraining of the myriad of staff that they have to continue to tell the same information to. That's the part they don't love about the industry, right? But they love the clients, they love the relationships. And from that perspective, I think it's really rather important that we start having more conversations, sales pitch, about what you really get out of the relationship component in accounting versus the math, versus the activity, and start really looking for the right people, right? So in these talks that I've had, it's become rather evident that there are a lot of things that accountants do that a good amount of people without education or the accounting
or that,
education,
that type of education,
can do the same things. Like, we could teach you how to do this. What we can't teach you to do is talk about the firm, talk about what you do, help businesses grow, be great consultants, be great partners, be a great relationship person, make people feel confident about their companies to grow their business. Can't teach that. That we can interview for, though, right? And that we can say it's something that we're looking for. So let me go back to kind of your original question. One of the things that we can do better, firms that I see do this better, are really develop the job description, right? To really look at it and see what pieces of that job description can be done by just about anyone, or what pieces of the job description really require some extra special experience, education, whatever the case may be, and grow from there. And there are so many firms that will call me and say, hey, Rach, I need a senior accountant. my answer is, so does everyone else. Like, what does yours
Mm-hmm.
do? And they say, well, can't you just like go on the web and like find out, get me a job description about senior accountant? And I of course say, yeah, I could do it. In fact, I don't need a job description to tell me what you're doing with your senior accountants. What I need you to do is decide how you're going to help them grow, how you're going to help retain them. What is different about your position here in that senior accountant role? What do they really need to have in their backgrounds? What skills are you absolutely looking for that's going to make them successful and want to stay in your business doing this? And do you want them to be a senior accountant for the rest of their lives? Is it just stop here? Or do you want a senior accountant that's going to one day want to become a partner in your firm and take over the succession of another partner? Because those are the key components that I need to do. I need to know to be able to solicit and obtain your people. And then I need your marketing department to put your logo on it. I need your marketing department to market smith this job description so that when I put it out there, people see that it belongs to you and you alone. And they're going to immediately associate themselves with, I want to be a part of that firm, not just I want to do that job. So I want to be a part of that firm. It's the reason why people might want to go to work at Amazon, or the reason why people might want to work at, wherever the case may be. Why don't we have that in the industry outside of like your big four?
Yep.
Right. Or the local firm that you drove to high school and you saw it's on the side of the road.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But,
and people buy into that, like the brand and the purpose of the firm itself carries as much, if not more weight when done rightly, right? If you're communicating that really well, carries more weight than the job description, right? Like I know great firms that people are knocking down the door to get into, right? Mm-hmm. They're saying, I want to work at your firm and I don't care where I land on the first go, just get me in, right? I think that's rare, but they're out there.
Yeah. So it's interesting because when I talk to my peers in the industry, we it's almost like we want to sit down with the accounting professors and have like a real like mom to kid talk with them, right? Like we really need to help them recognize where they can be helpful and where they've been harmful, right? So I kind of want to corral them in one room and say, hey, look, like, the be all and end all is not at that first big four job. Like, you're not less successful if you don't get the $75,000 internship at, so-and-so firm. You're not less successful. In fact, I think that what our professors are where they could be better to the industry is by really asking the question to students of like, what is your ultimate goal in accounting? Mm-hmm. And because this is what it looks like at the top, right? And the top, there are so many different opportunities, but to get to the top, you have to acquire these skills along the way. And which one do you most align with? We're not having those conversations, right? We're saying, get the $75,000 internship, the remote one, and go back home and have mom and dad make your dinner and they could shove it under the door. Right. Yes. So, or like, I just feel like we're just not marketing the industry anymore. And there used to be there was this great pay it forward program a long time that the state societies had. And it was really cool. And you would go in and you would tell high school students, but then there's like this 4 to 6 year window of like real grown-up time in college that we're not talking to people anymore.
Yep.
The industry is not talking to people anymore. So I think that part of marketing of the industry, we're kind of failing a little bit. Mm-hmm. At the firm level, when we don't have HR talk to marketing about, this is how we want to brand this job. This is how we want to let people know what it feels like to work here, what opportunities exist here, what you could become if you come here. We're not doing that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So got to do that better.
Yeah. Well,
I teach people how to do that, right?
Yeah,
I teach them, right?
I think that's the segue. So how could they start doing it better, right? What does that look like?
Well, I think the first thing is we have to not have this, this division between marketing and HR, right? Marketing needs to know what positions are available in our companies as well as HR, right? HR needs to know what the strategic plan is to acquire new clients, right? So, and that's where the cross really is. So if you have, we'll take a large firm, right? So if you have marketing subject matter experts, for example, cannabis, right? That's like the big deal now. So if you've got a marketing expert in the cannabis industry and they know they're targeting, for 200, the acquisition of 200 new clients in the next 3 years. Well, that 200 new clients in the next 3 years is going to require a certain skill set to service that business.
Yep.
Right. But HR wouldn't know that if marketing doesn't talk to HR, and marketing is the last person to be involved in strategic planning in most of these firms.
Yeah.
Right. So we don't have a seat at the strategic board level. I mean, we're there, but we don't know where it ties into, what the correlation is. Okay. So new business equals X amount of numbers of billable hours to service those clients. And that means I need to acquire 10 new senior levels, 15 new entry, because on HR side, we know for every X amount of entries, we're going to get a certain amount of seniors.
Yep.
Right. So that's the, the organic growth. And then what we have to acquire from the outside, or maybe now we need to do some acquisition to buy talent.
Yep.
And again,
at least now, like, okay, this is where we're going to end up and what we need in order to fulfill that demand that we're going to have. And then you can start to work backwards and go, how are we going to fill that demand? Right. How are we going to service it?
But instead it's like, that all sounds great. Go.
Figure it out.
And so at a very bare minimum, throw your HR director and marketing director in a room and say, that's your new BFF. Let's talk. What are you working on? What are you working on? Right? How does what you're working on in marketing and BD touch upon the people? Yeah. And then there's this other level of, I had written an article about it, and the article actually got a lot of feedback. The first couple of years of the job in an accounting firm is that you learn. That is the only requirement. It's everything I'm going to tell you to do, you need to do. You need to absorb it. First 3 years. After that, you become a teacher. So 3 to 7 years now, you're teaching what you've just learned. And if you've learned it rather well, then you should be able to teach it rather well. Although the transition from learning to teaching is a challenge for some folks. Sure. The biggest transition is 7 to 10 years when we say, now that you've learned it and now that you've taught it, go sell it.
Yep.
Right. And for the first 7 years, we don't tell them that that's going to be the expectation.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't tell them
ready at all.
No, we don't tell them that that this is how we market the firm. This is how we expect you to market yourself. You should be writing, talking, networking, calling your friends that you went to college with, building your network, your centers of influence. We don't tell them that until it's 7 years in. And so these are kind of the pivotal moments when people leave firms at that 3 year, at that 7 year, right? For me, it's a direct correlation between a transition. It's transitionary between learning and teaching. It's transitionary between teaching and selling. That to me is a conversation that marketing and HR have together that says, this is what the skills we need to be a better marketer, a better salesperson. Let's build that into the job descriptions and start building interviewing questions. That's the HR piece now. Behavioral interviewing questions, whatever it is. Like, let's start hiring bartenders and making them into accountants, please.
Yeah. Well, and also when you start to really see that vision for someone moving through the firm through those transitions, it gives them an expectation of where they're going. Not just like, okay, I'm going to have, salary increase, or I'm going to make partner at some point. And, obviously that, but then there's also these like, oh, these are the skill sets. And these are also the expectations that I'm going to have when I'm at year 5, right? I am teaching people. Well, did they know that when they got in at year 1 through 3? Was anyone told them that?
No, because, they're buying a Maserati and we're selling them a Honda. Like, that's what's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
So it's like, here's the progression. And I think when you understand your progression in kind of that field, it starts to make everything make more sense in terms of, oh, these are the skills I need to start working on and developing. And your high performers are going to jump on that sooner, right? So, a high performer in year 1, 2 is going to be immediately looking for opportunities to start learning how to teach while they learn what they're going to teach, right?
You got it.
And then when they're at year 3, they're going to be ready to make that jump really easily. And then, that has, I just got my brain going. I'm like all over the place.
I know it.
It's like, how much faster are you going to be able to output as a firm because of that kind of recognition? And it's like, how many firms are we working with right now, or I'm hearing from, or I'm talking to, who are feeling held back by the lack of opportunity to hire, right? Well, and some of that is, yes, okay, there's not enough people. Some of that is, this transition to remote and flexible work, and we're all trying to figure that out. And, staff on one side are trying to figure out what they're comfortable with. And firms on the other side, the management, the leadership is trying to figure out what they're comfortable with and meeting in the middle. And it's going to take time to figure that out. But the other side of this is you cannot be losing people, right? And it's so much of this. I hope everyone is listening to you right now and going, this light bulb moment should be going off if you haven't already had it. Of this is your opportunity to create a pathway for your people that really incentivizes them to say, this is where I can be and where I can grow and how I can really develop through this particular firm, and not have to be caught in this cycle of jumping from firm to firm to firm in order to grow.
Absolutely. And I think that it's also really rather important that there is some analysis, some specific analysis that marketing and HR talk about and apply together. And what I mean by that is, if you, and this is to the point of scaling, right? Yep. Scaling the businesses. If you could identify truly what types of individuals you need at each point. And so what I mean by that is not just like, how many tax people do we need? How many audit people do we need? I mean it from the perspective of, how many man hours is just straight data entry? Just plain data entry. Like, you don't need to understand what you're putting from here to here, why it makes sense. You're not going back to the client, the business owner, the accounting department, the CFO, whoever it is, and telling them like why it is you're doing what you're doing. You're literally just, this number goes here, that number goes there. Okay, right? So how much of that there is, and then how much of there is actual consultation, is accounting advice, is strategic thinking, is building development, helping a business grow, that trusted advisor moment, how much of that there is. If you could really understand those two pieces, not only can you then identify what type of people you need to hire, or how many data entry people, like, you definitely 1,000% do not need, if there's a shortage on entry-level accountants, then you might not need all those entry-level accountants. We certainly don't need entry-level accountants making $75,000 a year to do data entry. Absolutely not. And one of the conversations that I had recently was like, at what, we know that you only need the CPA to sign off on certain things, right? And I understand and I don't want to, please don't kill me, CPA people, but you can have people do the work and have the few CPAs sign off on the final product, right? No one is asking, clients are not asking, is every person that touches my documents a CPA? Right. So there's an opportunity for profitability shift as well. Right. So, and I always, when I'm talking to business owners and when I talk to CPAs, managing partners, it's always like, well, what does it do to the bottom line? How does it affect the bottom line? Right. And this is a really easy way to affect your bottom line.
And this is not a new model.
No.
I think that's the other thing that people have missed when I think about like what have healthcare professional practices like doctors' offices done in the last 20 years. They've created basically a whole hierarchy of roles that are beneath your DO or your, whoever your doctor
I
is.
can't remember the last time I saw an MD. I see a PA all the time.
Exactly. And it's because of the same issue, right? We're not putting enough people through general practitioner degrees, right? And so every office is like, well, there's not enough general practitioners. So what's the solution? The solution isn't just sit there and go, oh, well, I guess we're just not going to be able to do it. It's like, no, we're going to create and diversify who we can bring into this practice in order to fulfill the need that is there, right? We're not just going to turn people away. I hope not, especially in healthcare, right? Like people need help.
Like, what does the future of accounting look like? I mean, is there going to be an extinction of auditors at some point in time because of technology? Where will all the auditors go? Will they not be accountants anymore because they're not trusted advisors? They haven't built a relationship with business owners. I mean, what's going to happen? So if we're ahead of the curve and we recognize that there's a certain type of person that is attracted to the type of work we do, right? So we need to kind of think about a way to keep them involved, give them more broader experiences, market the profession. Like really, like there's so many opportunities here. And at minimum, if we just start having those conversations with marketing and HR, and I'm not saying those people need to be the same person because it's a lot of work. Let me tell you, when I was asked to do both of them, I couldn't even imagine and it was a mid-sized firm, like $20 million in revenue, 120 people or so. Like that's still a lot of work for, a mid-sized firm. But, you have some firms with 10, 15 people in a marketing department, 10, 15 people in the HR department, talk. Yep. And, I think to the point of recruiting, hiring internal recruiters, that's a sales component. That's a money saving sales component right there, built in.
Yep. Speaking to that kind of intersection of HR and marketing and really talking more from a marketer perspective, right? So if we're talking about that marketing role, there is a separate HR role in whatever firm we're making up right now. How can they maybe approach this? Maybe they're the ones listening to you right now and saying, okay, I got to do a better job. I've got to be more integrated with HR. How can they start to approach that and really kind of integrate better with HR?
Yeah. So I do think that a lot of marketing department staff don't see, like, they see their role being rather specific when it comes to like colors, logos, collateral, events coordinating. Like they don't understand necessarily how the work that they do is going to be effective in driving the business and acquisition of people and retention of people. Mm-hmm. And I see it like the air I breathe. Like I need them as an HR professional. Like I need marketing to help me get the right people, to help me keep the right people. So I think that the first thing is that there's got to be kind of a recognition that we need each other to be successful. And I hate to say this out loud, but it's top down, right? So and oftentimes in likely most of your mid-sized firms that have both of these departments, because small firms still kind of have an office manager or firm administrator wearing a bunch of hats. Yep. In that case, in the small firms with the firm administrator that's wearing a bunch of hats, and they're doing both marketing and HR, because they don't have two dedicated people or departments, things are often missed because they're not understanding the larger component. In mid-sized firms, if you have two director level people or two manager level people, having them to get together and just talk about on a basic level what projects they're working on, mm-hmm. And if HR says, that's interesting, that could help the people. And if marketing says, that's interesting, we need people to service this, then the conversation starts growing. At the larger firms, I think that there should be specific divisions that, I don't know what you want to call it, but that are consistently looking at how marketing and HR interface. You have DE&I, right? That's whole marketing and people right there, right? It's communication, getting the word out about certain events, acquiring data about people. So right there is a pivotal moment. Again, that recruiting piece, the strategy piece. So for me, there's at every single level firm, there's great opportunities to get the conversations going about how what we do in our department affects what you do in your department.
Yeah. No, and I think your example earlier, like you used the idea of, hey, we're going to go after the cannabis industry, and here's the strategic plan over the next 3 years. And really making sure that there's a detailed plan, not just from like an acquisition standpoint of new clients, but also how are we going to staff for that? And maybe there's even key staff in that are going to help your marketing, right?
Oh my God,
hey, let's go find a subject matter expert in this industry and let's go headhunt them or go acquire them, who can help really drive that a lot faster.
Right. But instead, to that point, what most firms did was they initially were like, okay, cannabis is going to be, on the scene now. Let's go hire some tax professionals and just train them up in cannabis.
Yeah.
Right. And here I'm thinking to myself, a new business owner in cannabis needs your tax professional like a fraction of the time in life. Like you're not getting big business out of that just yet. What you need is someone who understands how to scale, how to hire people, right? Like you need more of an advisor.
Go grab a CFO from a cannabis firm, right? Who, and put them in that seat as that advisor, that consultant, and then backfill it with the specific, specific service level expertise that you're going to need.
Okay. So, but you said something that's really important to me, where you made me think about what ends up happening is that there's this level of networking, right? So it's a marketing business development thing, networking.
Yep.
And that becomes so critical as you continue to grow through the ranks in accounting. And it's not something that many people feel comfortable with. In fact, a good amount of firms that I talk to and a good amount of partners that I do executive coaching with are very reluctant to network. And it becomes a difference between a really successful partner and someone who, stays at a compensation level that is kind of capped.
Yep.
And there are real good ways that your marketing department can teach networking.
Yep.
Right? Your business development executives that can share ways to help individuals grow. Like oftentimes we're not even talking to the accountants that are coming in because we need them to do data entry. we're not telling them that we need them to also like build a network.
Yeah.
But that becomes such a valuable component because we would like to go, to that idea of one-stop shopping, right? Where we can call over to our accountant and say, this is what's going on in my day. And that accountant is saying, well, hey, look, I could really use someone who understands the people in my company. I could really use someone who helps me acquire new employees, or someone who does compliance work, or, hey, I need this, marketing piece, whatever. And I'll tell you who's doing that really, really well in the industry is outsourced CFO people.
Yep. No, they get it.
They're killing it.
Yep.
And that's a service that could have stayed inside of a public accounting firm.
Yep.
And now we've got all of these spinoffs, these kind of one-off fractional CFOs that, taking away some of that real good business.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think when I talk to firms and I say, what's the vision? Where do you want to be? And they're all looking at the writing on the wall and going, we have to be more consultative. We have to be advisory. They all want to build out. If they haven't launched it already, they want advisory services. in their mix. And yet it's like, you have to have a strategic plan for that, of how you're not just like how we're going to market it, right? It's one thing to go get the attention for those things, but you have to have the product, and the product is the people, right? You have to have the talent that's gonna back up that promise. Like, hey, if we're going to be advisory, you better have the people that are going to be advisors, or training them to be.
Right. So in okay, so to the point of like internships, right? If you were to look at a tattoo artist who requires an intern, typically that intern will mirror what the tattoo artist is doing using the same material, but on an orange.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you got to do this. And then eventually you have to practice on real people that are willing to like mark up their bodies with whatever you're going to do to them. Okay. You have to get, your guinea pigs, right? What happens in Accountingville is we say, okay, you're an intern or you're an apprentice, right? So basically you're an apprentice until you get your CPA. And then we still tack on a couple of years before we anoint you with partnership.
Yep.
However, we don't necessarily give them the opportunity to practice on the orange.
Yeah.
We say, like, can you imagine a tattoo artist saying, okay, for the first three years, all I want you to do is fill the ink.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you're not training a tattoo artist at that point, right? You're training an ink filler.
Right. Well, what are we doing?
Yeah. That's what you're doing.
Right. Because then all of a sudden we're complaining that we don't have people that are staying in the industry, but we're not teaching them to stay here. We're not getting the right people in the door to begin with.
Yeah. And I think, again, taking that back to these ideas you've already presented around, parsing out the activities in your firm and creating roles based on activity rather than based on just, here's their degree, right? And you're going to do everything. You're going to do all the data entry. That actually frees up your firm, right, to actually invest in those that actually are going to be accountants, right? So when they come in at the internship level or the apprenticeship level, you're not asking them to just do data entry because that's not a demand that you have on that role. That's being filled by someone else who, let's be honest, is going to be a lot cheaper, right? And who doesn't have the expectation of growing through the firm and becoming that advisory type partner down the road, right? Who can sell. And so now it's like, okay, when we bring in an intern, we actually feel like we have the freedom and flexibility to really invest in them and put them on a trajectory that isn't just really what it is we're filling data entry roles with interns and with low-level accountants and saying, or entry-level accountants and saying, do this mundane work because someone has to do it, right? And now we don't have the flexibility and freedom to invest back in you because you just gotta plug away. And then when it's like, year 3 to 4 hits and it's like, oh, it's time to teach. And they're like, what? I'm not ready for that. I have no idea that that's where we were headed. Because all I've been doing is filling ink for 3 years.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right.
So this has been great, Rachel. Is there any other last tidbit of advice or anything that you would want to leave with accounting firm marketers, business developers, I think HR partners? Hopefully there's a couple of partners listening. I hope so. This is really important. Listen,
I think that there's lots of work to be done, right? There really is. And then I think that the work HR and marketing can do together is really like bucket filling, right? Like it's feel good work. Like, oftentimes people want to feel a connection to how they're helping a business grow. Yeah. This is it. This is the time. This is the opportunity. It's one of the things I really loved when I worked in public accounting, and probably the primary reason why I went out on my own so that I could help more firms answer this problem, and really kind of, spread out that there was opportunity here. So I just think that someone has to take a real interest in the growth of a firm, in its existence, in its ability to stay independent and not have to merge. I do think that there's lots of people that come into the industry with high hopes and expectations, but they lack the knowledge of what it really truly is going to be. And so I just think that we could do better. We need to do better. We can do better.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So thank
Awesome.
you, Rachel, so much for coming on today. I think it's been a fantastic conversation. You've added a wealth of ideas and insights that I think are going to be really helpful. And hopefully our listeners right now are going, all right, I gotta write some of this down and maybe give you a call. Maybe some of them will give you a call. In light of that, how can they find out more about you? Maybe your website, email, phone number, whatever you want to share, but what's a good way to get in touch with you?
I'm happy to take phone calls, emails. My website is mattersofmanagement.com. I am Rachel at Matters of Management. And my cell phone has been the same cell phone I've had for the last 25 years. So it's public knowledge, 201-446-1236. It is a personal and business, and it is always on, except when I'm at a client.
Good for you. That's great, Rachel. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much.
And I want to thank all of our listeners for listening in on this fantastic conversation with Rachel. This is another episode of Amplify, the podcast for accounting marketing. Thank you so much, all of you, for listening in. If you liked this episode, please give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you're listening in from. We would really appreciate it. It really helps us reach more people, reach more accountants, reach more marketers, reach more business developers in accounting firms. We really have, I think, a lot to offer through our podcast, and we'd really love if you would help us get out there and reach more. If you'd like to find out more about Amplify and all of our episodes, head over to accountingmarketing.org. You'll find the podcast under the menu item publications. If you'd like to find out more about me and my brand consultancy, Resound, head over to resoundcreative.com or email me at mike@resoundcreative.com. And until next time.